Hey guys, welcome back. In the last lecture, we worked on controller specs for post action and there we implemented examples for sending requests into different formats. I mean HTML and TurboStream formats. In this lecture, we will still work on some specs for post actions, but this time we will write specs for rendering error templates, validity of user being created and error messages returned by the user create query, which will get rollback if user transition get fail. So let's start. First, we will write a spec to check whether the errors are being rendered or not on the form after submitting the empty form. So come to the bottom of the user controller spec file. Okay, so here you can see that we have a file that is user controller spec, and here what we need to do, before the user params method we need to create an it block, and in this it block what we will do that we are checking here that it should renders the validation error into the form. So what you need to do here, it should, sorry, it should renders the validation errors into form. Okay, and then just end this it block, and inside this it block what we need to do, first we need to create call the post action, and then we need to pass the params here. So what we can do is we can copy this text, but we will modify our params here because in the user params method you can see that we set a completely valid user params, because nothing is blank here. All the valid and sorry, all the required attributes have some values in this user params method. So what we need to do here, just copy this user params body, and then we will replace this at the place where we are calling this user params method. So place it here and first correct the indentation. And now what we need to do, we need to provide either nil or blank emails or name. Okay, sorry, not emails or name and email. Okay, so here you can provide nil value, and for the email as well you can provide the nil value. Okay, and if you wish you can provide an empty string as well. For example, just replace this nil by this empty string, and this will get work both is the same way. Whether you provide nil value or the blank string, this is not considered as the valid value and you will get some error. So it's all up to you what you want to use, nil value or the blank string. So just do or just use whatever your preference is. So here you can see that we created we modified the user params method with name and nil name and email as nil values. Okay, now what we need to do, first add the debugger here. Okay, and we need to run this spec. So here you can see that this spec is at line number 64. So switch to the terminal and we need to run this spec. So RSpec, and then spec, then controllers, and then users controller, and execute the spec at line number 64. Okay, so why I'm adding this as debugger here, because okay, so here you can see we are getting this error. Sorry, we just need to make it outside the params body. Okay, so just place this debugger outside the params body and switch to the terminal again, and now run your spec. Okay, why I'm adding the debugger here, because I just want to check that the user we are trying to create is valid or not, and what the template we are getting into the response. Okay, so first switch to the terminal, and here you can see that now debugger is at the correct place and it halts the execution of this spec. Okay, here what you can see that assigns user. Here you can see that this user has ID nil, name blank, email blank, and city Indore, state, MP, country, TW, and so on. Okay, now what we need to do, that assign user dot valid. If this user is valid, then our spec should get failed. Why? Because we are just writing this spec for checking the invalid user. So this user is not valid. So what we can do here in our spec, here you can see that expect, and then same line that we need to use here, that is assigns, and then user. Okay, and then dot valid, and here what you can do, to not eq true, or here you can simply use valid to eq false. Okay, if you are not trying not to, if you do not want to use the to not. Okay, but I'm using the to not here. just to show one more case here that what we can use. Okay, so you can do it here. And now, as the next thing, what we need to expect here, that the response must render the template that is being rendered to display the errors. And you can check it inside the user's controller. Here you can see in the create action that if user is not saved successfully and request is sent as the turbo stream format, what template we are rendering or what partial we are rendering, that is users and model. Okay, so you can find this model partial inside the app views users. Here you can see, or just open the views directory, and just open the users folder into views, and here you can see that this model partial we are rendering to display the errors into the form. And you can check the same thing inside the form as well. So switch to the browser, and here you can see, just visit the users index page. Okay, and now click on the new user button. And when you submit an empty form, first make some space into the terminal where the server is running. And now just click on the create user button and submit the empty form. Here you can see that we can see the errors associated with the users. And now you can check this on the terminal as well, where the server is running, that it is rendering the user underscore model dot html dot erb to render the errors on the form. So what we need to do here, just to simply switch to the users controller spec, and here you can just write expect response. Okay, expect response dot to, and then render template. And here what you need to provide, user, sorry, users, and then underscore model. Okay, this is the template that is being rendered once this spec get, oh sorry, once this response is returned by the users controller create action. And you can again verify the partial name into the terminal where the service is running as well, that it is rendering the users underscore model dot html dot erb. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to remove this debugger, and we need to run our spec again without debugger to see whether this spec is getting pass or fail. So just switch to the terminal tab where your spec is running and exit the debugger. And now just run this spec again, and you will see that your spec will get pass. Okay, so here you can see one example, zero failure at line number 64. So what we are expecting in this line number 64, that the user being created should not be valid because the name and email attributes are nil, and the response must render the template that is underscore model dot html dot erb from the users directory in views. Okay, now let's move to another spec, and here we will check for the validation error messages, or what error messages Rails will provide or the controller will render into the form once it receives the name and email as nil into the params. Okay, so just to copy this it block. Okay, so just copy this it block, and here what we can do, just paste it here. And now change the context of sorry, the text of this it block. And here what we need to write, that it should include the error messages for empty attributes. Okay, so it should includes the error messages for empty attributes, empty attributes. Okay, and now do not change this params body, this should remains as the same. And here we just need to make an additional expect, that is we need to expect that whatever the assign users return us, it error messages should include that name cannot be blank and email cannot be blank. Okay, and we can just verify this using debugger as well. So add the debugger here. Okay, and now run this spec from the line number 81. So change the line number here, and here what we need to do, execute this spec, and you will see that this debugger will halt the execution of this spec. Why? Because we need to check that what error messages are written by the rails query or rails user create query. Okay, so here you can see that assigns user dot valid, you can see that it is false. Then now what we need to do, that errors dot full messages. Here you can see that email cannot be blank and name cannot be blank. Okay, so what we need to do here, just write remove this debugger and write another expect. So here you can do expect and then assign users and then dot error dot, sorry, errors dot full messages, and then two. Okay, here if you wish, you can use the equality measure as well, like 2 EQ, and just pass the entire array. Or if you wish, you can use the include measure as well. But we already use the EQ measures a lot of times, so now we will use the include measure. That is okay, and the include measure must have the error messages that is written by the Rails query. Okay, so what we can do here, we can just copy this email can't be blank and name can't be blank from here. Okay, so just copy it and paste it here. Okay, so here you can see that expect assigned user errors dot full messages dot to include email can't be blank and name can't be blank. Now exit from the debugger and run this spec again at the line number 81, and you will see that our spec will get passed again. Why? Okay, I did not save the file, so sorry. So just to save this and exit the debugger again, and now run this spec again, and you will see that our spec will get passed again. Why? Because we did everything right. Like we first check the user is valid or not, and we just check that what template is being rendered, and then we checking for the messages or the exact messages that is written by the us controller. You can try this stuff with the custom error messages as well. For example, if you want to provide the custom error messages for the missing attributes or the empty attributes, then you can define that their message formats into the user model, and then you can write those error messages here to check that whether your custom messages are coming or not. So this is the same process. Okay, nothing will be changed. You just need to change your error messages here. Okay, in this spec, you can see that I used the validity check and the partial being rendered check here, just like as the previous example, because both these check must be true if you want to check for a failed or rollback transaction. Okay, because whenever we submit invalid param hash or invalid user data, our transaction will get rollback, and we must make sure that to check that whether this user is valid or not, and what error template is being rendered on the browser. Okay, so far we make two simple checks for failed users, create transaction, and here we will make just one more spec to test the uniqueness validation error, because different kind of errors can be associated with an object, or different kind of validations rule you can apply on the attributes of your model. Okay, so we checked the errors for the missing attributes or empty attributes. Now we will write a simple spec for checking the uniqueness attribute as well, or sorry, the uniqueness validation error as well. So this spec just give you an idea that you can check any kind of validation error in your controller specs. Okay, so just write this spec. So what we need to do here, we can just copy this spec at the line number 81. So just copy this entire it block and here paste it. Okay, and now here we just need to do one thing, that we need to provide the valid name here. Okay, first change the text of the it block, so it should include the uniqueness error. It should include the uniqueness error in form. Okay, and now what we need to do as the next thing, here we need to modify our param. We need to provide a valid value to the name. Okay, because we are just going to check the uniqueness error, so we cannot leave the unique sorry, we cannot leave the name attribute as empty. And here you can see that in the before each block we created a user, and we are using this user to get sign in. Okay, so we already have a user created into our spec, so we will use this email of the same user, so user dot email. Okay, and you already know that we added the device gem into our for our user model. So with the device or with the email uniqueness validation, no two users with the same email can be created into the system. So you just need to make this change. Sorry, you just need to make this change, user dot email, and here you just need to change your validation message again. Okay, so what we can do here, we can just add the debugger. Okay. By the way, the simple message could be like email already exists. Okay, so but just to get the exact error message, add the debugger here, and you can see that at the line number 99, what we need to do, just run our spec from the line number 99. Okay, so switch to the terminal. Okay, and you can see that debugger will halt the execution, but we get the error here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so there is a typo mistake in the debugger. So what we need to do it, debugger. Okay, so just do not make this typo at your end and save this, and now run your spec. You can see that this debugger will halt the execution of your spec. And here what you can see, check errors dot full messages, that email has already been taken. So what we need to do, we just need to copy this error and just paste it inside the expect statement below the debugger. So just uncomment it, remove this debugger, and just change the error message here. That should be email has already been taken. Okay, so just save this and now run the spec at line number 99. Okay, first exit from the debugger and run this spec again, and you will see that our spec will get passed again. Now let's run all the specs in the users controller. So remove this line number just to make sure that our additional specs or our additional text doesn't affect the entire test that is already existing there. Okay, so whenever you add new specs, just keep this thing in the practice that you must execute the entire spec file to make sure that your additional specs does not hamper the existing specs, or your existing specs should not be affected by the newer specs you added or the additional specs you added into your spec file. Okay, and that's all we are done for all specs for post action here. However, if you wish, you can create few more examples for it. You can also try the similar way to write the specs for patch action and delete action. Just try at your end, and if you got any issue, then don't worry. I will soon publish a new lecture for that in coming week. So let's try this lecture at your end, and we will meet into the next lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe.